Imagine a shadowy figure lurking in the darkness. Hear the echo of gunshots piercing the silence of a quiet street corner. Witness the true horror of the DC sniper attacks, where every spot held the threat of a deadly bullet, and brace yourself as we uncover the shocking truth behind one of America's most sinister killing sprees. In October 2002, the tranquil streets of the nation's capital were shattered by a series of chilling attacks. What began as isolated incidents soon escalated into a reign of terror, plunging the Washington, D.C. area into a state of fear and uncertainty. Over the course of 3 dreadful weeks, unsuspecting residents became targets as the sniper's bullets pierced the fabric of everyday life. But let's go back to where it all started. Lee Boyd Malvo, born in Kingston, Jamaica on February 18, 1985, grew up in a financially unstable environment, largely without the presence of his father, Leslie Malvo. It was in Antigua where Malvo crossed paths with John Allen Mohammed, a former U.S. Army sergeant born on December 31, 1960. Mohammed, bitter over a failed marriage and custody battles, saw in Malvo both a protege and a pawn. In 2001, Malvo entered the United States with Mohammed using a tourist visa, joining his mother, Una James, in Florida. The first sign of their deadly intent came on September 21, 2002, when they acquired a blue 1990 Chevrolet Caprice, modifying it into a mobile sniper's nest. Inside, they crafted a hidden compartment from which they could unleash their reign of terror. For weeks leading up to the attacks, Mohammed and Malvo meticulously planned their assault, scouting locations and honing their marksmanship skills. As the crisp October air settled over the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, Mohammed and Malvo set their plan into motion, setting the stage for a spree of violence that would leave an indelible mark on the nation's capital. On October 2, 2002, the first shot rang out in the suburbs of Maryland. James Martin, a program analyst, became the sniper's first victim as he pumped gas into his car outside of a supermarket. The seemingly random attack sent shockwaves to the community, but it was only the beginning. Over the next 3 weeks, Mohammed and Malvo struck with ruthless efficiency, targeting innocent civilians with chilling precision. Their victims included men, women, and even children, gunned down at gas stations, parking lots, and bus stops. With each passing day, the body count climbed higher, and panic gripped the region. Schools closed, public events were cancelled, and residents lived in constant fear of the unseen threat lurking in their midst. The sniper's elusive nature only added to the sense of dread as law enforcement scrambled to make sense of the chaos unfolding on their streets. Despite the best efforts of police and federal agents, Mohammed and Malvo remained one step ahead, their blue Caprice blending seamlessly into the traffic-clogged highways and suburban sprawl of the nation's capital. As the attacks continued, the question on everyone's mind remained: who were the DC snipers, and what drove them to commit such senseless acts of violence? As the death toll mounted and the pressure on law enforcement intensified, Chief of Police for Montgomery County, Charles Moose, in charge of this case, faced a daunting challenge, piecing together the puzzle of the DC sniper attacks. With no clear motive and seemingly random targets, the task seemed insurmountable. But as the investigation unfolded, ballistic evidence linked the shootings to a single weapon, a Bushmaster XM15 semi-automatic .223 caliber, which is a high-powered rifle fired from a distance. At several scenes of shootings, tarot death cards were left, and on them were written, "Call me God, for you, Mr. Police." Meanwhile, more than 150,000 tips were received, and the task of sorting them out was becoming overwhelming for law enforcement. For most of the shootings, the public had reported seeing a white van leaving the scene. This type of vehicle became the prime target of law enforcement, not knowing their efforts were wasted all along. However, one tip coming from Robert Holmes, who was watching the national coverage, thought the perpetrator could be his buddy from their days in the army and who owned a rifle. He was referring to John Mohammed. On October 24, 2002, the nation breathed a collective sigh of relief as the manhunt for the DC snipers reached its dramatic conclusion. Acting on a tip from a vigilant citizen, police descended upon a rest stop in Myersville, Maryland, where Mohammed and Malvo were sleeping in the blue Caprice. In a tense standoff, officers surrounded the vehicle, weapons drawn, as Mohammed and Malvo were taken into custody without incident. Inside the car, authorities found the evidence they had been searching for: the Bushmaster rifle, ammunition, and the sniper's nest from which the deadly shots had been fired. For weeks, the two men had eluded capture, striking fear into the hearts of millions with their indiscriminate attacks. Now, they would face justice for their crimes. The following factors are only speculations and do not justify criminal behavior. Mohammed harbored deep-seated grievances, including resentment over a failed marriage, custody battles, and perceived injustices in his life. These grievances likely fueled his desire for revenge and a sense of power and control over others. Leroy Malvo, a vulnerable teenager, was drawn into Mohammed's orbit and became susceptible to his influence. Malvo's troubled upbringing and lack of stable parental figures left him particularly susceptible to manipulation. Mohammed instilled in Malvo a sense of obedience and loyalty, blurring the lines between right and wrong and eroding his moral compass. Both Mohammed and Malvo experienced feelings of isolation and alienation from mainstream society. Mohammed, a military veteran, struggled with reintegration into civilian life and felt marginalized by society. Malvo, an immigrant from Jamaica, also faced difficulties assimilating into American culture. Their shared sense of alienation may have fostered a bond between them and fueled a desire for revenge against society. Mohammed employed psychological conditioning techniques to indoctrinate Malvo and desensitize him to violence. This included subjecting Malvo to rigorous training exercises, manipulating his thoughts and emotions, and instilling a sense of obedience and loyalty to their cause. Over time, Malvo became increasingly dependent on Mohammed for guidance and validation, making it easier for Mohammed to control his actions. Both Mohammed and Malvo likely experienced cognitive distortions that justify their violent actions. They may have rationalized their behavior as a means of seeking justice or revenge for perceived wrongs, viewing themselves as righteous crusaders against a corrupt society. During the trial, witnesses recounted harrowing tales of survival, while forensic experts presented damning evidence linking Mohammed and Malvo to the shootings. Ballistic reports, DNA evidence, and eyewitness testimony painted a vivid picture of the sniper's deadly rampage across the Washington, D.C. area. In November 2003, John Allen Mohammed was convicted on multiple counts of murder and sentenced to death. He was executed by lethal injection on November 10, 2009 at the Greensville Correctional Center near Jarrett, Virginia. Leroy Malvo, who was a minor at the time of the attacks, was also found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole at Red Onion State Prison in Virginia, a supermax prison. According to one of Malvo's attorneys, Mohammed's plan was to use the $10 million ransom sought from the US government to establish a utopian society for 140 homeless black children in Canada, where they would be turned into militia killers and execute more people in the US. As we move forward, let us honor the memory of the 17 victims who tragically crossed paths with this deadly duo.